It all began on a sweltering day in Egypt, as the sun dipped low over the golden sands of the Sahara. The team of archaeologists, led by Dr. Serena, had been digging for weeks inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, hoping to uncover something that would rewrite the history of ancient Egypt. But what they found in the deepest chamber was something none of them could have ever predicted, an artifact, unlike anything the world had ever seen. Dr. Hawk stood in awe as her fingers traced the intricate, alien symbols etched into the dark metal surface of the device. It looked nothing like the tools or treasures that had been discovered in the pyramid before. It wasn't even Egyptian. "I've never seen anything like this," Serena said, her voice barely a whisper. The artifact glowed faintly, casting strange shadows on the walls of the chamber. It wasn't just an object. It was a mystery waiting to be solved. She turned to her team. "Is anyone getting a reading on this?" Alex, the team's tech expert, fiddled with the scanner, his brows furrowed. "It's giving off some kind of radiation. But nothing I've ever encountered before. It's like nothing on this planet." The air in the chamber was thick with anticipation as Serena carefully removed the artifact from its pedestal. It felt unusually heavy for its size, almost like it was pulsing with energy. As she lifted it, a sudden rumble shook the pyramid, followed by an eerie hum that filled the chamber. Serena?" Alex asked, eyes wide. I think you just activated it." Before anyone could react, the room around them began to distort. The walls seemed to stretch and bend, the temperature shifted, and time itself felt wrong. The floor cracked open, revealing a massive glowing vortex, swirling with colors beyond comprehension. "Get away from it," shouted one of the team members, but it was too late. The vortex pulled them in with an overwhelming force. When the team regained consciousness, they were no longer inside the pyramid. The air was thick and hot, but the sounds were unfamiliar. Strange chanting and the clashing of metal on metal echoed in the distance. Serena blinked and looked around, only to realize that they were no longer in the present day. "Where are we?" Alex gasped. The landscape before them was unrecognizable. Towering stone structures loomed over them, and strange figures in robes and armor marched through the streets. The city was magnificent, yet it felt ancient, even older than the Egypt they knew. Everything around them screamed of a past far older than any history book had ever recorded. Serena's heart raced. "I think we're in ancient Egypt, but not my Egypt." Suddenly, a voice boomed from behind them. "You are not supposed to be here." The team spun around to see a tall, imposing figure wearing a headdress unlike anything they had seen before, its design shimmering with alien symbols. The man's eyes glowed faintly blue, and his voice carried an authority that felt both regal and terrifying. Who are you?" Serena demanded, stepping forward. "I am Sethit," the figure said, his eyes narrowing. "And you are trespassing in a time not your own. The artifact you hold is a tool that can manipulate time itself. You have activated it, but you have no idea what you have unleashed." The team exchanged nervous glances. "Time manipulation?" Alex asked, his voice incredulous. "That's impossible." "Not impossible," Sethit replied, "but dangerous. This pyramid was not built by your people. It was built by another race, a race that has mastered the art of time travel. They used the pyramid as a gateway, a machine that could take them through the very fabric of time. But they left it behind, and now you have used it." Serena's mind raced as she absorbed the information. The pyramid a time machine? An alien race? It was like something straight out of a science fiction novel. "Why are we here?" she asked, trying to maintain control. "What do you want from us?" Sethit's gaze hardened. "You are here because of the artifact. You must return it to its rightful place, or face the consequences. The Guardians of Time will not tolerate intruders. The timeline is fragile, and if you do not act quickly, you will undo everything." As the figure spoke, the sky above them darkened, and the ground trembled. From the shadows of the city, monstrous beings emerged, creatures that seemed to have been crafted from both metal and flesh, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. "Guardians of Time," Sethit explained. "They will stop at nothing to protect the timeline. And now, they will come for you. Before Serena or anyone else could react, the ground beneath their feet cracked open, sending them tumbling into a vortex that appeared out of nowhere. The next thing they knew, they were falling through a tunnel of swirling colors, time itself bending and twisting around them as the world seemed to spin out of control. "What's happening?" shouted one of the team members. "I don't know," Serena screamed, clutching onto the artifact as the vortex pulled them deeper into the unknown. Just as they thought they would be torn apart by the force, the vortex spat them out. Only this time, they were not in Egypt at all. They were standing in the middle of a vast, alien desert. Strange, glowing plants dotted the landscape, and in the distance, enormous pyramids, unlike anything they had ever seen, rose into the sky. The air was thick with a strange, metallic scent, and the horizon glowed with a strange, purple hue. "This isn't Egypt," Alex whispered, his eyes wide with disbelief. "No, this is another time," Serena said, her voice filled with wonder. "We've traveled beyond Egypt." Suddenly, from the horizon, a massive ship, like nothing they had ever seen, soared through the sky, its engines leaving trails of bright energy behind it. It was a craft of unimaginable technology, its shape angular and sleek, and as it passed overhead, the ground trembled beneath their feet. "This is an alien world," Serena muttered, trying to comprehend what was happening. "We're not just in the past. We're outside of time itself." The artifact pulsed in her hands, its alien markings flickering in and out of existence. She looked down at it, realizing with growing dread that it was not just a tool, it was the key to something far more terrifying. And as the team scrambled to understand what had just happened, the ground beneath them cracked open once more, and a shadowy figure stepped forward. "You will never understand what you have awakened," the figure hissed. It was Sethid again. And this time, he wasn't alone. The group spun around at the booming voice. Standing before them was a man draped in golden armor, his face hidden behind a mask, only his piercing blue eyes visible. His presence exuded authority, and his gaze seemed to pierce straight through the group. "You do not belong here," he repeated, his voice commanding. "You have awakened the artifact." Alex, still disoriented, stepped forward. We don't know how we got here. We were just..." The armored figure raised his hand, silencing Alex. "You activated the device of the pharaohs. The Timekeeper's artifact. You should not have disturbed it." Serena's eyes widened. "The Timekeeper's artifact? What is that?" The figure did not answer directly. Instead, he moved closer, his eyes scanning each of them. "I am the guardian of the Time Vault. Your interference has set the wheels of time into motion. You are now part of a trial, one that was designed by beings from the stars." Before they could react, the world around them began to shift again. The Guardian, his voice echoing in the distance, warned them, "Survive, or you will be lost to the sands of time forever." The group was sucked into the vortex once again, disoriented and desperate to understand what was happening. In an instant, the world around them transformed, becoming even more unfamiliar, even more alien. The new environment was harsher, endless dunes stretching out under a blinding sun. The wind howled, carrying with it the smell of salt and decay. There were no signs of civilization, no roads, no structures, only sand, and a strange, hum-filled silence that made the group uneasy. "What the hell is going on?" Alex muttered, glancing at Serena. She was staring at the horizon, her face pale. This isn't just ancient Egypt," she whispered. "This is wrong. This doesn't feel like Earth." The artifact, now glowing dimly in Serena's hands, pulsed again. She barely noticed the sensation at first, but then the ground beneath them began to tremble. The sand shifted, and something began to emerge, a colossal, monolithic figure covered in intricate carvings that shimmered under the sun. "It's a pyramid?" one of the team members said, his voice shaking. But it wasn't like any pyramid they had ever seen. The architecture seemed to defy logic, as though the structure itself existed in multiple dimensions at once. A low, Mechanical sound echoed from within the pyramid as a massive door slowly opened. The ground around them rumbled, and the group instinctively took a step back.
"Do we go in?"
Serena asked, her voice steady despite the fear creeping up on her. "We don't have a choice," Alex replied. They walked toward the entrance, the air thick with anticipation, the strange hum now louder, vibrating through their bodies. As they entered the pyramid, the temperature dropped drastically. The walls were smooth, metallic, and covered in alien symbols that shimmered faintly, just like the artifact. The darkness inside seemed endless, the only light coming from the pulsating glow of the artifact. The deeper they went, the more they felt the unsettling presence of something ancient. And then, they saw it, a vast chamber, its ceiling impossibly high, filled with statues of beings they could not comprehend. Figures with elongated limbs, large eyes, and faces twisted in expressions that seemed to convey both wisdom and warning. "This is not Egyptian," Serena said, her voice trembling. "This is something else. Something from beyond." Suddenly, the ground beneath them shifted again. The walls of the chamber came to life, projecting images, fragments of alien civilizations, faraway worlds, and battles between gods and monsters. The images flickered with such intensity that it felt like the very fabric of space and time was bending. And then, the voice returned. "You have entered the time vault. Your trial begins now." A cold wind blew through the chamber as the voice faded, leaving the adventurers in eerie silence. The air grew heavier, as if they were being watched by unseen eyes. Alex, always the skeptic, broke the silence with a nervous laugh. "So what now? We just sit here and wait for the next crazy thing to happen?" Serena ignored him, her focus fixed on the artifact. It was humming now, resonating with something deep within the pyramid. She felt the pull again, the same pull that had brought them here. It was calling her, urging her to move forward. Without thinking, she stepped into the center of the chamber. The others hesitated, but Serena's determination overpowered their doubts. She raised the artifact high above her head, as if offering it to the unseen forces watching them. The walls around them glowed brightly, and the floor began to shift once again. From the darkness, a series of enormous, glowing eyes appeared, floating like orbs in the void. They were watching them, observing every movement, every breath. "This is it," Serena whispered, "the trial. It's starting." The first eye blinked, and the pyramid seemed to tremble in response. The group was thrown forward, each of them stumbling as the world twisted around them. They were no longer in the pyramid. Instead, they were standing in a vast, barren wasteland, with ruins scattered across the horizon. The air was thick with dust and smoke, and distant thunder rumbled ominously. Where are we now?" Alex asked, his voice panicked. Serena scanned the area, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the distant shapes moving in the haze. "I think this is the future." The distant future. As the team moved cautiously through the ruins, they noticed the sky was filled with strange, shimmering ships, their designs unlike anything they'd ever seen. It was clear that whatever civilization had once inhabited this place was long gone. But what had happened to them? Why was the world so desolate? Then they saw it, the first sign of life. A group of armored figures emerged from behind the wreckage, their faces obscured by helmets. They moved with an unnatural speed, their bodies augmented with advanced technology.
"Who are you?"
one of them shouted, raising a weapon. The team instinctively raised their hands in surrender, but the figures didn't lower their weapons. "We don't want any trouble," Serena said, her voice calm but firm. The leader of the group stepped forward. "You are not from this time. You must be eliminated." As the group faced the hostile figures, their minds raced. They had no idea where they were, who these beings were, or why they were suddenly caught in the middle of a battle they didn't understand. Serena, her heart pounding, tried to reason with them. "We don't mean any harm. Before she could finish, a burst of energy exploded from the ground beneath them. The armored figures scattered, their weapons firing in all directions. The adventurers had barely managed to avoid the blasts when a low, rumbling voice echoed from behind them. "Enough." The ground trembled, and suddenly, a colossal figure appeared before them. An enormous being, clad in shining armor, its face obscured by a glowing mask. It was like nothing they had ever seen, its presence overwhelming. The armored figures dropped to their knees, and the adventurers did the same out of instinct. The figure's voice boomed again, filled with both command and ancient authority. "You have come for the trial," the being said, its tone unyielding. "And so you shall face it. Your fate is now sealed." The team stood in stunned silence as the figure's words reverberated through the air. It was clear now, this wasn't just a random time jump. This was a test, and whatever lay ahead would determine their survival. "Are you ready?" the figure asked, its voice like thunder. Serena looked at her team, the weight of the moment heavy on her shoulders.
"We don't have a choice," she said.
"We have to survive. Whatever it takes." The figure raised a hand, and the ground beneath them began to shift. The air crackled with energy, and the team felt themselves being pulled forward once more, toward the unknown. As the world around them spun once again, Serena couldn't shake the feeling that they were being drawn into something far bigger than they could ever understand. And somewhere, deep in the back of her mind, the nagging question lingered. Who, or what, was behind the Timekeeper's artifact? What was the true purpose of their trial? And could they survive it long enough to find out? The world around them flickered, stretching and distorting, like a painting melting under heat. Serena felt her pulse race as the air grew heavier, the pressure mounting with every passing second. Her hands tightened around the artifact, its glow now brighter, almost blinding. The others clung to her, disoriented and panicked, unsure of what was happening next. And then, with a sharp jolt, everything stopped. They were no longer in the barren future. They stood at the edge of an ancient, sprawling city, a city that seemed to transcend time itself. Towering ziggurats and glowing spires rose into the sky, their surfaces etched with the same alien symbols they'd seen in the pyramid. The streets were lined with beings that seemed to blend human and extraterrestrial features, their eyes glowing with a strange, knowing light. "This isn't possible," Alex murmured, staring in disbelief at the scene before them. This place, it's beyond anything I've ever seen." Serena's heart pounded in her chest. They weren't just travelers in time anymore. They were standing in the nexus of time itself, the origin point of the Timekeeper's artifact. The real trial had begun. A figure approached them, her steps measured and deliberate. She was tall, her skin shimmering with a metallic sheen, and her eyes, like the others, glowed with an eerie, intelligent light. Her voice, when she spoke, was both alien and familiar, as though it resonated directly with their minds. "You have come to the end," she said, her gaze sweeping over the group. "The final test awaits." Serena's grip on the artifact tightened. "What is this place?"
"Who are you?"
"I am Nephra," the figure replied. "I am the last of the Timekeepers. I and my people once traveled across the stars, shaping the timelines of countless worlds. But we left behind a trial, a test for those who would seek to manipulate time. Only the worthy can control the artifact you carry. You have come far, but you are not yet finished." Alex stepped forward. "What do you mean, not finished?" "We've been through hell. Ancient Egypt, the future, alien worlds. What else could there be?" Nephra's gaze turned piercing. "You have seen fragments, mere shadows of what was, what is, and what may be. But you have not yet witnessed the greatest truth, the price of altering time." The air grew heavy with an ominous tension as Nephra raised a hand, and the city around them shifted. Buildings collapsed in on themselves, time reversing and twisting in impossible directions. One moment, the city was alive, thriving with activity. The next, it was nothing but ruins, broken and forgotten. "Time is a delicate fabric," Nephra continued, "and when it is manipulated, it can unravel. The artifact you hold has the power to destroy all of reality." Serena's heart skipped a beat. "You're telling me the artifact, it could destroy everything?" Nephra nodded slowly.
"Yes."
"The artifact was never meant for the likes of you. It was created by my people to protect the timelines, not to be wielded by mortals. The guardians you have encountered, the ones you've evaded, they are not merely protectors. They are the consequence of every failure. Every person who tried to use the artifact and failed. A deep rumbling sound echoed through the air, and from the wreckage of the city, monstrous, mechanical beings emerged. Their eyes, glowing with the same blue light, scanned the adventurers, calculating and cold. They are the judgment, Nephra said. The consequence of those who would defy time itself. Before Serena or anyone else could react, the ground beneath them cracked open, and the mechanical creatures charged. The battle was swift and brutal. The adventurers fought with every ounce of their strength, their weapons, whatever they had, no match for the Guardians' overwhelming power. Serena held the artifact high, feeling its pulse with every movement, as if it were feeding off their fear, their desperation.
Do it,
Alex shouted, blood dripping from a gash on his forehead. Use the artifact. We have to finish this. But Serena hesitated. She could feel the weight of Nephra's warning, the truth in her words. Using the artifact could end everything, yet not using it meant certain death. Focus. Nephra's voice cut through the chaos, echoing in their minds. You have one chance. Do not let fear control you. In a flash, Serena knew what had to be done. She wasn't just holding the artifact, she was part of it.
It was more than an object, it was a conduit, a force of nature.
With a cry, she released the artifact's power, and the world around them exploded into light. The Guardians froze, their bodies crumbling into dust as the artifact's energy surged. The city shuddered violently, the fabric of time itself stretching and snapping. The adventurers were thrown to the ground, their senses overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the event. When Serena opened her eyes, she was no longer in the city. The world around her was still, silent. She looked at her team, Alex, the others, and saw that they were all still alive. But something had changed. The artifact was gone. It's over, Serena whispered, standing shakily to her feet. We did it. We stopped it. But Nephra's voice lingered in the air, her words haunting. You have saved this reality, but at what cost? The fabric of time has been altered. You will not remember this place. You will not remember me. But know this. You are the last to touch the artifact, the last to hold its power. And with that power, you will change the future forever. The ground beneath them began to shift once more, and the world around them began to fade. Serena blinked, her head spinning, and suddenly, they were back in the pyramid. The vortex was gone. The artifact was no longer in her hands. What just happened? Alex asked, looking around in confusion. Was it a dream? Serena didn't answer. She couldn't. The weight of what they had just experienced was too much to comprehend. Had it all been real? Had they truly traveled through time? Or was it some kind of illusion created by the artifact? The pyramid was silent now, its secrets buried once again beneath the sands of Egypt. The world seemed unchanged, but Serena couldn't shake the feeling that something had been set in motion, something far beyond their understanding. As they made their way out of the pyramid, the sun setting on the horizon, Serena caught a glimpse of the stars above. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if the Timekeeper's artifact was still out there, waiting for someone else to find it. And if they did, would they be ready?